I love that it goes straight in now.
Isn't it so nice?
It really does make me happy. And we actually have audio at the beginning of the podcast this time. That's beautiful.
Imagine thinking that over 100 episodes in, we finally know what we're doing.
Yeah. 117, I believe, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're the one who chose to be sitting there. Oh, boy. So, yeah, Kellen, I'm glad you mentioned that in the chat. Yeah, we did see that Ashton has finally accepted that the videos are real, which is... Oh, yeah. Sorry, fake. Yeah, the videos are fake. Dude, I'm so tired, man. I'm so tired, and I don't know why. Anyway, yeah, we did see that Ashton has finally acknowledged that the videos are fake. Which, I mean, what did we say to him on that call after the episode we had him on?
Be careful about being too hardcore about one specific point of view on this story. Mm-hmm. Be open to criticism and be open to the opposite ideology, or not ideologies, but ideas about what really happened here, and flow with the information.
Yep. I mean, it's incredible that we sat there, you know, and basically told him, like, hey, we think you've stumbled upon something interesting here. We feel like you've been doing a pretty good job of putting everything out there and reiterating the information, but you got to make sure that when somebody brings something and says, hey, we think this disproves one of your points, you got to actually look at it. You can't just go, oh, okay. Yeah, this is clearly wrong because I have to be right. But that's why the title of the stream is what it is tonight. I mean, Occam's shaving kit. We're working on a shirt. I'll pull up the Spring dashboard so you can see it. Spring has completely screwed us over by deciding that they were just gonna not let us have our URL back. But anyway, what I wanted to do was pull it up so you guys could see it, because I designed this on one of my live streams on the Aiden Mattis channel earlier in the week. So I wanted to pull this bad boy up so you guys could see. Switch it over to the podcast screen really quick, or the guest screen. Tech. But yeah, so we designed this bad boy. I personally think this is going to be a bestseller. If you're watching on mobile and maybe it's a little hard to see, it says Occam's shaving kit for when a razor just won't cut it. And here's the zoomed in view. So these should be up for sale within the next 24 hours, and we will post the link. And then on the back, it has a nice. Nice. Can you move that for a second? The preview button. Yeah. Oh, and it's gone. There we go. That bad boy. This bad boy. This will be up for sale very soon. But yeah. So it got me thinking. You know, this was kind of an Occam's razor scenario where it was like we really do have better explanations for this. Mm-hmm. There are other possibilities, and I like how one of the big arguments people had with us who were more on the orbs sucking it into a wormhole side was they were like, oh, well, why would there no debris? The only way there could be no debris is if there was a wormhole. Then I said, well, it could have just been a coordinated cover-up effort by two of the world's most powerful militaries. And they were like, that's ridiculous. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, wait, so your argument is that the military has secret technology that they decided to use against all reasoning, because that plane had like 2 Americans on it and really nobody who was like supremely important.
Yep.
That's more likely than the US and China went, ooh, this is going to look pretty bad. We should probably clean this up. Because, you know, there's the part where the Cathay Pacific pilots were like, we saw debris, and that story disappeared from the internet.
Yep.
Like, that, I mean, they even were like, we sent a civilian ship out there to look for the debris, and it wasn't there a day later.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind, oceanic debris fields, especially if this thing exploded, like I think it probably did, given the fact that it was basically lithium-ion batteries packed into a container that would have eventually turned into something of a pressure cooker. Pressure explosion, blows up the plane, rips it into pieces. It was 40,000 feet in the air. that stuff's going to fly all over the place. Not all of it's going to float.
Mm-mm.
Like, the likelihood that anybody's going to find any of it was pretty low. A week later, almost absolutely no way. I mean, let's look at where everything eventually did supposedly wash up. Madagascar. I feel like cover-up is a much better possibility.
Just even scientifically speaking.
Yeah. So there's that, of course. Also, I do want to recognize, because there's a very large super chat in there from Cameron Tolley. Thank you so much. That was very kind of you. That was for Canadian $50.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. But yeah, I don't want to solely talk about Ashton tonight, because if we do, then he's probably going to pop back into the chat and complain about how we can't get him out of our heads, or he's living rent free or something like that, when we weren't even really talking about him all that much.
Yep. So we'll cover a bunch of different topics.
Yeah. So the other things we want to talk about are kind of like the those other situations where we feel like somebody has latched onto a theory, and then that theory eventually turns out to not be very, very defensible. And rather than pivoting or accepting they were wrong, redirecting resources, something like that, they just stick with it. And there's a few examples of this, and we've covered 3 of them.
Yeah.
We've covered more than just 3, but we have covered at least 3. And so far, that's my opinion with Smiley Face Killers cases, for example. I do think it is possible that these cases across a large area are connected in some way. That's what we're trying to dig up. But so far in the 2 that we've looked at, the smiley face connection, the specific thing about there being smiley faces nearby, feels extraordinarily weak. I think I have some theories about where that could possibly be coming from, such as maybe these guys did see a pattern, but they needed something to make the pattern stick out. And so the smiley face thing was kind of like, all right, well, we can say there's a smiley face near him. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. I don't want to discount Gannon and Duarte, without having spoken to the guys. I would love to talk to them about why they're so convinced that this smiley face thing is related. But like we looked at the Luke Homan case, and that's what we're going to primarily talk about tonight. But I want to give people kind of an intro here. We're going to go over a few things. It's going to be Luke Homan. That's going to be the major one. But we're also going to touch on this news with Ashton Forbes saying, you know what? All right. Yeah, these were fake. He somehow managed to say these were fake and I'm still right, which is mind boggling. But
that's better than Tartaria's done.
I guess. Yeah. Tartaria is probably the most Occam's shaving kit. They don't just need Occam's shaving kit. They need Occam's Manscaped catalog. Speaking of which, I hope Manscaped knocks on the door at some point, because I'm really sick of using my Phillips.
Fair.
It's just not it's not good. They're designed to break down. Like, give me some ceramic blades, man. And then the other one is Missing 411, because I mean, again, a lot of people will either agree or disagree with this, but I feel like David Paulides latched onto these things, and some of them are definitely weird. I think in attempting to construct a case that this is a widespread issue, he involved a few too many things, and maybe either didn't do enough work, or his own confirmation bias led him to omit things. But yeah, that's I'm going to go into detail about why I think all of these, but I'm sure you'll have some thoughts too, having sat with me through all of these.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But to start off, Luke Homan and Todd Guy, the smiley face killer stuff, we're obviously only 2 videos in. I don't want to jump to conclusions about what we're going to find at the end. But, and we are going to be going to look at 2 of the Pennsylvania ones. One is Tommy Booth, and the other, I think, is Dakota James. Tommy Booth was, I believe, Philadelphia. Dakota James, I believe, was Pittsburgh. So we're going to look at those. But what I saw with Todd Guy being the first one we covered was I did not feel like that was really connected to anything. Definitely was not an accident. Like, he did not drown accidentally. Somebody put him in the water.
Yeah.
But the smiley face thing, and this was like the very first red flag I had with smiley face killer stuff. Nobody alleged to have found a smiley face until after they found out about Gannon and Duarte's work.
Yeah.
So again, And I will say this much. If I were in Todd Gibe's mother's position and there were a way to get mainstream attention to the obvious murder of my son that was overlooked by the police, I would put a smiley face sticker on his grave and then call somebody. Because if you listen to her talk, she says, yeah, I heard about the smiley face killer stuff. And then, that weekend I found a smiley face. And I'm like,
why would you?
It just seems and that was like years later, and it would randomly show up right after that she found the smiley face. I'm not going to hold that against anybody. I don't think that she did anything wrong there. I think she actually did the right thing. She found some way to get the cops to look at that case. She also may have legitimately found a smiley face. We will not know that unless we get the opportunity to talk with her, which I would love to do.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to, come back and say, yeah, I was completely off on that one. Like, she actually did find it. There's evidence.
Yeah.
But it was that. And I will say this much. It could be on Gannon and Duarte or the showrunners for Smiley Face Killers, The Hunt for Justice, because the way it was presented made it sound extraordinarily suspicious. There may have been more to that interview where she explained, what led up to it, or maybe the whole town found out about it at once, something like that. But the way the TV show presented it, it really made it look like that was planted by somebody connected to the case who wanted the police to take another look.
Yeah.
To quickly go over what happened to Todd Gibe, for anybody who didn't see that video, he was at a party. He was drinking, but, nobody, according to the people he was with, he seemed aware of his surroundings, coherent. He just kind of got bored and decided to go home from the party. I have some theories that he maybe didn't get bored and maybe was going to meet with somebody, which would explain some aspects of the case. For example, nobody can seem to pinpoint why he left, which I think is weird.
It is weird.
But he leaves the party, makes a couple of phone calls, or takes a couple of phone calls, makes a couple of phone calls, speaks to a few people, and then he says he's lost in a field, and then he shows up in a lake near where the party was held 3 weeks later. He had no injuries, no sign of insect infestation, really no sign of decomposition beyond being in the water overnight. The cops did not DNA test anything. They did not fingerprint anything. They didn't even interview the people who found his body. They just said, he must have drowned. He was in the water. Guy had no water in his lungs. Guy had so much tricyclic antidepressant in his system that he can't possibly have walked all the way there, let alone really moved after it was put into him. He had a blood alcohol content of, I think, 0.12, which, again, the mix of that and the tricyclic antidepressants would have just straight up killed him. He just would have fallen asleep and passed out and died.
Yeah.
I know that can happen with Ativan. It can slow your breathing so much if you drink while on Ativan that you can die. Not great. Not ideal.
No, not at all.
We look at Luke Homan. This one, I think there's a bit more meat to. I think Todd Gibe was definitely murdered, for the record. Luke Homan. He's Crosse, Wisconsin. He is the, I believe, 8th young man to drown after drinking in Crosse, Wisconsin since 1997. We dug in. The TV show really focused on the smiley face that was a half mile from where he was found in the water. A smiley face is one of the most common types of graffiti out there. You will find smiley faces all over the place, completely randomly, unconnected to anything. Only 12 of the, I think, 45 cases they've looked at actually have a smiley face in proximity to the murder. On the other hand, also, of the 8 men who drowned in that time period, 3 of them really didn't seem connected at all. One was too far outside the area. One, I can't remember precisely why I said no. I think he was also too far outside the area. And then the other one was actually, oblivious to his surroundings. So could have easily wandered into the river. Luke, as well as the other 4 guys we decided were probably connected, if you go back and you watch the video, they're a little bit more similar. They're all athletes between the heights of 5'9" and 6'3", so kind of that average to tall range. They're all, conventionally good looking. They're all relatively intelligent, successful, kind of people you might you might target for a number of reasons. They also, aside from one of them, were all single. They were all spotted along the same strip of bars on 3rd Street in Crosse, Wisconsin, and they all had blood alcohol contents that were incapacitating to some extent. Not necessarily would have knocked them out, but they would have had very, very poor fine motor skills. They would have been slurring their words a lot. They probably would not have been super aware of their surroundings. I mean, we're talking like 0.19 was the low side.
Yeah.
That is nearly three times the legal limit. Several of them were in the 0.24 to 0.3 range, and Luke himself was 0.32.
Woohoo.
Yeah. We also know that the same night that Luke went missing and likely drowned, his friend Austin was also in the same park, also had a head injury, also was extremely inebriated, and just happened to get picked up by cops.
Yeah.
Luke, however, was cited after that. Like, people saw him. Now, it's not super reliable, the sightings. What is reliable is the fact that Austin said that he last saw Luke at 12:30 at the Vibe. Austin himself was actually arrested and detained at around 10 o'clock. And held for detox. Probably for at least 2 hours, and I don't think he went back to the Vibe, because he says he didn't go back to the Vibe. He says he went home. So nobody can place Austin Scott at the Vibe bar anytime after 10 p.m. Nobody can place Luke there anytime after 9 p.m. A couple of people claim they saw him at a couple of different bars, two of which were on 3rd Street. That's possible, again. Also could be somebody saw somebody that looked like Luke. He did have specific clothes on, so they may have, corroborated it that way. But either way, the latest Luke was possibly seen was 2:30 a.m. The other guys, that's all about the time that it was for them. It was after midnight. I don't think a single one of those 5 was before midnight. They all were either found in the river, right next to Riverside Park, or downstream from Riverside Park by 1 to 2 miles. Between 0 and 2 miles, I should say. Those don't seem like a coincidence.
No.
We're also talking in the span of 9 years. And then after that 9 years, suddenly nothing. I don't think it's particularly likely that a group of people nationwide are using smiley faces to disguise killings of young men. I think it's much more likely that there are a lot of smiley faces and a lot of places where people die. Now, a group of 5 guys who are all young, good-looking, single, and very drunk, who were all at the same strip of bars? Well, I can see a situation in which you have each of them goes to a bar. And these some of these were actually in the same year. Goes to a bar, they're pretty drunk, they meet a pretty girl. Pretty girl says, hey, my friends really want to go get one more drink at this bar, but I really want to spend some time with you. How about we meet up in Riverside Park later? Drunk as hell 21-year-old guy being asked by a pretty girl to go hang out in the park. Yeah, you're going to go do that. You get there. Maybe the girl is there. Maybe she's got friends. Maybe she has lured you into an ambush for some reason. I think a lot of people get hung up on motive, which we get hung up on motive sometimes, but that's in cases where it's like, this pilot, out of absolutely nowhere, decided to crash a plane and kill 239 people, including himself. A little bit different than a small group of people who get their kicks by murdering people. It's a little bit different. Just a much smaller scale, and something that we actually have seen before, that there are just people out there who get off on that.
Yep.
That's different from, nobody kills 239 people and themselves to get off, unless maybe Dennis Reynolds. But you get my point.
Yeah.
So I think with that specific case in La Crosse, Wisconsin, also, I was very amused to realize that there's apparently like a La Crosse, Wisconsin cinematic universe. Yeah, there's some other YouTube channels that have dealt with La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for completely disconnected things.
Like what? Do you know?
Something about a guy in a T-Rex outfit, and some YouTube channel about cops' interactions with people in La Crosse.
What's going on in Lacrosse?
That's what I'm wondering. Is like, do we need to go to Lacrosse? Do we need to go check out the vibes?
We either need to go to Lacrosse or never go to Lacrosse.
Exactly. I think actually Charles Blatz was 28. So yeah.
We're in the danger zone.
Well, you got to be 5'9" to be in the danger zone. You must be this tall to die.
Oh, fair.
Yeah. You're safe.
Then I can go.
Exactly. See, the problem has solved itself. You can film. You can film me dying.
I'd rather not.
I mean, I feel like that's going to happen at some point.
I hope not.
We're going to be out in the woods being like, we're looking for the Bigfoot, and then we're going to find it.
Yeah, if anyone's going to find it, yeah.
Yeah. I will find Bigfoot. I don't know what he's going to be. He might just be a dude named Richard who's got big feet, but I will find him.
Shake his hand.
What?
Shake his hand.
Bigfoot's hand?
Yeah.
How do we know Bigfoot knows how to shake hands?
If it's a dude named Richard with big feet, I have a feeling he will know.
That's a good point. We did meet a guy named Richard who was rather large.
We did.
In Brant Lake, yeah.
We did. He was a nice guy.
He was a nice guy. He told us a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how much of it was true.
Moving swiftly
He did say that that Tom Messick, he heard Tom Messick had a brother who disappeared 10 years prior, and I could find no evidence that Tom Messick even had a brother. Brother. Yeah, but so that's the other thing is and this is a good transition into talking about Missing 411. A lot of the criticism we get from people when it comes to us saying we think David Paulides got this wrong comes from the times where he said that somebody said something, and we're like, we found no evidence that happened. And people go, well, he actually went there. He interviewed the people. Why are you contradicting it? Like, people are unreliable. I mean, yeah, you're a journalism major. What's the journalistic angle on witnesses?
The more you have, the better you got, because people's perspective on things varies widely, even of the same instance in the same place.
You could have two people in like the exact same bar watch the exact same thing happen and get two wildly different stories about all of the details, and they will only match on the face of it.
Yep.
I have seen this in bars as a bouncer where there's like something going on, I get called over and people are complaining, and I ask one person what happened, I ask another person what happened, I get two different responses. The only thing anybody can agree on is, oh, there was a fight.
Yep.
Not helpful.
Nope.
Not helpful at all. So that's why when it comes to the witness stuff, I think it's important to have that experience maybe. A lot of people look at it and they go, oh, well, he actually went there on the ground, he talked to some people and they told him this. It's like, did they provide evidence? Did they have photographs? Did they have a recording of it? Or is it just that they said it happened? Probably the best one was Charles McCuller, where the David Paulides version of the story is when he was found, his torso was not with his legs, his pants were sitting on a log, his feet were still in his socks, still in his pants. When I went and I actually looked into it, there was not a single record of that. The only source was David Paulides. I like what David has done. I think he has put together a very interesting theory. I think that he has actually brought some cases up that don't make sense.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can't only trust one person on what they said. Yeah, so I just, it's frustrating. And it's another one of those situations where, yeah, there's here's a good example. Bobby Bizup. Bobby Bizup, sorry. He is at camp in Camp St. Malo over in Colorado, up in the Rockies. He disappears. Nobody can find the kid. Counselors all have roughly the same story. There's some discrepancies regarding like exactly what time it was he with other people or not with other people, which direction did he walk off in. But for the most part, everyone agrees on the basics. Bobby Bizup was there. Bobby Bizup was last spoken to when he was told that it was time to go up for dinner. And then Bobby Bizup disappeared. The only people that they got these from were counselors. People working at the camp.
Yeah.
It's a Catholic school, or a Catholic boys camp. run by Catholic priests and Catholic seminarians. Colorado was like I think the nexus that unveiled all of the abuse that was going on within the Catholic system. Which, again, to be clear, just because the Catholics got caught doesn't mean they're the only group doing it. The rates of child abuse in really any organization are frighteningly high. I think public schools are the worst, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's not surprising. That's where most kids are the most
true.
often.
That's
like,
true.
When you think about what makes sense, like public schools have the most interaction between kids and adults of anything.
Yeah.
Especially the most relatively unsupervised interaction.
That's true.
David, from what I can tell, when it came to Bobby Bizup's story, either did not speak to any of the campers who were there or any of the counselors, or if he did not actually include what they said in his account of the story, at least in the, I will be straight up, I have not read the Bobby Bizup account he has in his book. I've only seen his account portrayed by Mr. Ballin, but I trust John to be accurate about what he's recounting.
Yeah.
The guy's a storyteller. I'm not going to expect him to dig in and do what we do.
Yeah.
But I expect that he's going to faithfully tell the story as it was presented to him.
Yeah.
I'll have to go and read it, but I looked into Politis's YouTube coverage of it, and from what I can tell, he did not speak to anybody from the camp that was there. A news station in Colorado did. They went and they spoke to some of the counselors. They went and they spoke to a ranger. They went and they spoke to some of the campers. And the story changed quite a bit, especially considering that I think at least 3 of the counselors or leaders of the camp that were there that day did eventually get nailed for child abuse. One of them got shipped around to 4 different dioceses.
That's right.
Because he kept getting caught.
Yeah.
The guy who was running the camp gave a child skull to a friend of his.
Yeah, that was a wild bit of that story.
Yeah, as the story goes, basically the way that it was presented was Bobby went missing. You know, the last anybody saw him, he was fishing in a creek, and then nobody saw him for a year. They stumbled across his remains at like 11,000 feet when the camp was at 80-some hundred, like 8,400. So he's like a quarter of a mile, half a mile higher, and then also about, I think, a full mile in terms of like distance.
Yeah.
That's a rough hike for a 10-year-old. That is not easy. That's like something that would take you and I a lot of effort. I know that because we did it a year ago and it was not fun. I was not feeling good. You can go watch it. It's the video where we're with Wendigoon in the woods talking about Dennis Martin. I was sweaty. I was having an asthma attack. I was having a bad time. That was when I realized, maybe I need to lose some weight. And then I proceeded to not do that for another 6 months.
But you did do it inevitably.
But I did do it. Boom. So, as it turns out, the guy who found him was eventually later pegged for child sexual abuse. The owner of the camp, the guy running the camp, the priest, was eventually giving skulls to friends of his. And when they interviewed the children who were now adults had very different things to say about what happened that night. It turns out nobody asked them or took them seriously when he actually went missing. One of the stories they told was that the last they had seen of Bobby was actually in the building. Not back when he was fishing. It was in the building that night. They said they couldn't be sure it was that night specifically, but they were almost positive. They were like, I could not give you evidence, but I am pretty positive it was the night he disappeared.
Yeah.
What they said was that he was back at the snack bar, that he was talking to, I think the guy's name was Neil, a counselor, and that he ran out very upset. That he was emotional, that he was possibly crying, just ran out. I don't think we need to spell it out what Occam's razor is here.
Even Occam's shaving kit.
You don't even need the whole shaving kit on this one.
Nope.
Bobby pretty obviously was being abused and ran away.
Yeah.
And got lost up in the mountains and unfortunately passed away because he was a 10-year-old boy lost at 11,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains. There's not even that many dots to connect. So when I look at that, and I look at the fact that it was now, granted, I will say, a lot of this stuff only came to light after Paulides covered the story. Mm-hmm. But had Paulides interviewed these people himself, he would have learned this stuff. Which is why when people say, you know, he's doing all the work, I'm like, I'm not necessarily sure that he's as reliable as you want him to be. And I'm not saying that because I want to discredit the guy. I'm saying that because we have had so much criticism of our coverage that is basically along the grounds of, well, David Paulides said this. I couldn't corroborate it, so I didn't include it.
Yeah.
Or he said something and I was actually able to find evidence to the contrary. For example, Stacy Arras, there's the lens cap that's mentioned. A lens cap would be evidence, especially if it matched her camera. And, and according to him, it did. The lens cap was never recovered. Nobody at the time interviewed mentioned a lens cap. Nobody mentioned any particular attention paid to that specific area where the lens cap was found. And the letter from the guys running the search to one of the groups who helped with the search says, though absolutely no evidence was found, we do appreciate your help. Like, it's very clear. Nothing was found. What we do know is that she had said that she was going up to one of the ridges to take some pictures. Or that she was going to go take pictures of the ridge. It's unclear specifically what she said. Also, it's possible people were misremembering when they were being interviewed. The area, according to the searchers, was filled with places that you could slip into and get stuck. The weird part for me about the case was that she wasn't found in any of them. Now, a lot of people said, oh, well, what about the old man who went with her? He was 72 to 77 years old. Nobody could pinpoint it. They apparently didn't care enough to even bother checking what his name was. And the time between him walking off with her and people realizing she was missing was not long enough for him to get to the nearest parking lot. Also, going into it, he would have had to have known that there was going to be a 14-year-old girl to kidnap and have coordinated this for that specific location ahead of time with somebody else if there were going to be people getting in and out. I remember we did the math. I took a look at the actual distance and the actual time it would take to get to where she went missing from the nearest parking lot. There was no possible way. There were also people on the trail to that parking lot who did not see her. You know?
Yeah.
So I look at that stuff and it just, I am well aware that I may be wrong about things, which is why every single video I say, if you think we got something wrong, give us some evidence and let us know. We get a lot of people who say you got something wrong and very few who actually give us evidence. There's no article titles. There's no, oh, you should read this guy's work. Occasionally we do get somebody saying, oh, well, why don't you read this guy's work? I go and I look that person up and they're like, a nutcase.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People will be like, go read Chan Thomas or Charles Hapgood. And I'm like, you mean people who have been roundly debunked by the entire scientific community?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about most of the scientific community. I'm talking like nobody agrees with them today.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the logic. That's the other thing is looking at the Chan Thomas stuff. That's the Adam and Eve story. That's whenever the poles flip, there is a massive crustal displacement where the earth shifts around, the mantle shifts around, or the crust shifts around on the mantle, and it causes tsunamis and volcanic explosions and earthquakes and all of this stuff. And it's happened before and it's going to happen again. And humanity has somehow survived this. How? What seems a lot more likely to me is that, I don't know, maybe there's some guy out there who has a ranch of some kind in Colorado dedicated to surviving some sort of experience like this that charges, I think, a minimum of $250 for a membership, who will not answer any questions, but rather tell you to go watch his entire playlist and then will accept invitations to come on a show and explain his point of view or debate even, and then, back out and say you have to watch his whole playlist first, which, by the way, I will mention is days of content, considering the guy posts every day. Yeah. Somebody will do that, and, you might suspiciously observe this and look into it and find that the very logic doesn't make sense, because you know what often forms as a result of the Earth's crust moving? Mountains. Yeah. You know where the ranch is? Right outside the Rockies. Believe the term is grift. Nobody took Chan Thomas seriously except Graham Hancock. And in Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock says that crustal displacement's a thing and that it's going to happen again. And this is the disaster that destroyed the ancient civilizations.
Oh boy.
And then you know what? Something funny happened. In 2007, they showed that the Younger Dryas almost certainly happened as a result of a comet impact. And they found their version of the KT barrier. The KT barrier being the line of soot created after the giant asteroid killed the dinosaurs. Graham Hancock looked at that and said, well, you know what? That's a hell of a lot more likely. And he changed his opinion to Meltwater Pulse 1b.
Yep.
Even Graham Hancock does not believe this. And I want to say straight up right now, I like Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
I think he's got the wrong conclusion. I think that he is...
and what exactly is that conclusion again?
It's not necessarily that he has the wrong conclusion. I think he has the wrong... I think he has a good conclusion, bad evidence.
Okay.
Because his conclusion is that this massive sea level rise event, Meltwater Pulse 1b, and the Younger Dryas period kind of collectively destroyed what we know today as Atlantis. His version of Atlantis is, and this is why I hate when people talk about Atlantis, just in sort of general terms. Tell me specifically what you mean. For me, and for anybody who's seen our content that delves into Atlantis and lost civilizations and all that, for me, Atlantis is a maybe Copper or Bronze Age level society that had developed on maybe the Mediterranean coastline. And when the sea level rise occurred, 25 meters of which happened in 100 years or so, that was wiped out. And humanity had to reset a little bit. Took us a couple thousand years to catch up to where we were. And, by 8,000 BC, 10,000 BC, we're seeing the makings of agriculture again. By 4,000 BC, we're seeing civilization again. But, you've built everything in one place, and then you've lost the sum total of all human knowledge. And there could have been multiple of these. Atlantis is mentioned as being multiple kingdoms by Plato, and he supposedly got this from the Egyptians who had it passed down. I think that's feasible. I think it is plausible that there could have been a Copper Age civilization 12,000 years ago that just was not widespread enough and it got wiped out. Graham's is a little bit more intense. It's that this was a larger civilization or a number of civilizations who had more advanced technology. And here's the thing, he's kind of backed off. His earlier work does make much more of an argument for a advanced Atlantis, a civilization either close to or on our current level, if not more advanced. He's walked that back quite a bit. You watch Ancient Aliens, and you watch Graham Hancock, and Graham Hancock seems like an extraordinarily rational individual by comparison. I think he is, for the most part, an extraordinarily rational individual. I also think his life's work has been this theory, and he's willing to accept a few too many holes that I personally am not willing to accept. There's also a few things like in Ancient Apocalypse, he really connects a lot of these myths too much based on outdated work. That's the other thing, is he was coming up in the 80s. We've found a lot of stuff out since then. When he was talking about the Maya, when he was talking about Central America, South America, civilizations like that, we hadn't yet really deciphered Mayan. We did not know how Mayan hieroglyphics worked. And then in the mid-'80s, they started to figure it out. But that didn't mean we knew all of it yet. it took years to eventually figure out, okay, how do we actually read Mayan start to finish? It doesn't quite match with kind of some of these earlier theories. There's also stuff that gets brought up about codexes that are being held in Spain that say certain things, and people allege that they said these things before we could read what they said. So they were reading them as pictograms, not as hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics developed from pictograms, pictograms being basically symbols that represent words or concepts. Hieroglyphics evolved out of that, and then we get hieretics, and then we get phonetics, and language evolves, writing evolves. There's probably stuff that we're looking at right now going, well, this is probably this, or we have no idea how that worked, that in 20 years, somebody's going to figure out, and I'm going to have to deal with this. In 20 years, I'm going to be in Graham Hancock's position, where I had said stuff 20 years ago that really doesn't hold up, and I got to make the choice, do I dig in my heels? Or do I basically say, you know what, I was wrong? And it's scary to say you were wrong. It's a big hit to your credibility. People might not take you seriously anymore. On the other hand, people might. I think that there's also a sort of a loyalty to your audience issue. And I felt this when we started to move away from the Missing 411 is being caused by some sort of supernatural thing over towards Missing 411 is the result of, you know, random individual tragedies. Yeah. There are still some Missing 411 cases that baffle me. Yeah. Jim McGrogan, Garrett Bardsley, Bart Schleyer is up there for me, more in the sense that Bart seemed a little too good to die the way it was alleged he did. Yeah. I also think that the grizzly bear answer doesn't make much sense because grizzly bears leave a cache. They do not eat the body all at once. They eat most of the body or part of the body, and then they bury it to come back for it later. Give me 1 second. One moment. So for those who haven't seen the Bart Schleyer video, man, we're going over a lot of stuff tonight. We're gonna have a lot of cards to put in this.
I was gonna say we're kind of covering like the last year and a half.
Yeah, I'm on the meds.
Yeah, I can tell you've just been going. I'm just letting you do your thing right now.
Ooh, imagine me on real meth. Aiden, we need to cook.
Let him cook.
Please don't let me cook.
Why, you're so good at it. The buffalo chicken dip is great.
We will overcook.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We do not need me to overcook. That's what happened, like, when I gave you that one phone call that one time.
Oh, yes. Yeah, a little bit.
I could see the patterns in the carpet.
He stayed in the oven a little too long.
Yeah, don't want to do that.
No.
It was a little air fried.
Yeah.
Bart Schleyer, for those who haven't seen the video, was, like, the grizzly bear guy in the entire world.
Oh, I remember this guy. Yeah, the pictures, were cool as hell.
The guy hunted grizzlies with a bow for fun.
Yeah.
And, like, also to, like, you know, out of respect for the animal.
Yeah, and
like,
feed his family and stuff.
Yeah, to hunt this animal is to, you know, this is the greatest challenge.
Also would, like, tranquilize tigers to help, like, track them and ensure that they weren't being, like, poached. Because he was very anti-poacher, right, from what I recall. But yeah, we just, like, you know.
Yeah, it was, he got recruited by a group of Russian scientists, as well as a few other Americans and Canadians, to go over to Siberia to help track, tranquilize, and tag Siberian tigers, one of the largest cats on the planet and one of the most deadly predators out there. Put a tag on them so they could be monitored. In one instance, there was a cub that they were like, oh my God, we could track how cubs grow up. Like we could actually, like, for the first time observe this. And they got out there and they were basically like, well, mom could come back at any minute and I'm not going in there. And Bart's like, all right, let's do this.
Yep. Definition of a man.
Goes in, tags the tiger cub, leaves.
Yep.
So he's up moose hunting in the Yukon and just kind of dies immediately upon getting off the plane. Like, the evidence was that he got there, he set up camp, he ate a single meal, cold, didn't even start a fire yet, paddled his way across the lake, or across the pond, I guess, goes, sits down, and just dies. And they say grizzly bear got him. It's like, well, the grizzly bear couldn't have come from behind him. He was up against a tree. And if the grizzly bear was in the tree, it would have shaken the tree. So grizzly bear can't come up from behind him. Would have had to be in his peripheral vision. Think about this guy. He's a grizzly bear expert. This is not your average hunter out there. This man's job was grizzly bears. No way it could have snuck up on him. Unless he had fallen asleep, and he was too smart to do that. There were grizzlies in the area. There were wolves in the area. It's just that unless he did something really out of character, he probably wasn't going to get caught unawares. There was also really no sign of a struggle. They found all of his weapons in place, which means he didn't even try to put up a fight. And they found no cat.
Yeah.
They found no evidence that he was killed by a grizzly bear. There was bear scat and there was wolf scat, and there was no Bart in either one. What the hell happened to the guy?
Great question.
They found some of his clothes torn up. What can sneak up on a guy like that? Another guy like that. What can grab a 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy and take both them and the fishing pole they were carrying away silently? A guy like that. That's Garrett Bardsley, for the record. For those who don't know, he was grabbed and nobody hurt him. He was literally 75 yards from both his father and so his dad's here, the camp's here. Garrett went missing here. He was in earshot or eyesight of somebody the entire time.
And there's a T-junction on that trail, and he couldn't have gone down that trail because his dad saw him start to go down it and told him, hey, you're going the wrong way, go that way. So his dad confirmed that he made sure he went down the right trail, which led directly to the camp, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's like...
And the big thing was, when he went, he had his fishing pole with him. A lot of people said mountain lion. Yeah, there's mountain lions up there. They're not going to grab his fishing pole.
No.
A person would. Not saying necessarily that it had to be a feral person or a Bigfoot. Somebody took that kid. Hard to say who, but what I can say is that the area he went missing is in a really interesting spot along a little known route. That is little known because a lot of people will realize very quickly it was a bad one trying to get to California. Hastings Cutoff. Yeah, the Wasatch Mountains, directly east of Hastings Cutoff. That's where he went missing. Think about what the most likely case for feral people in America would be. People who got lost off the Oregon Trail. There are very few places remote enough for a significant number of people to get off course like that. And we happen to have a case study of what happens when they do. Now, in this case, the people got out. The survivors, at least. What if they didn't? Kind of a colony up there. You know what a breeding population of humans is?
No, what is it?
50.
That's it?
Yeah, 50 to maintain a breeding population.
Wow.
Those people don't all have to be in exactly one space, but that is to ensure that you can continue. You want higher than that, preferably, but that's like the size of a small clan. What is a clan? It is an extended family unit. Could be cousins, could be further than that, but basically a clan is a family unit large enough to avoid inbreeding, but maintain familial identity. Do you know how many people were in the wagon train the Donner Party was in?
How many?
Over 500.
Wow, I knew it was high. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah. It's 50 to avoid significant defects. It is 500 to avoid really any defects. Basically, is the way that it is for humans, at least. That's why with like the real feral people stuff, with like for example the Descent movies, the idea that there was an offshoot group of humans who were cavemen who never left the caves. That is the films. I haven't read the book. The director, the writer of the film said these are cavemen who never left the caves and evolved to exist underground. a lot of people look at that and they're like, well, you couldn't possibly have that many individuals in one location. Humans historically have migrated to find mates.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a tribe 50 miles away who your tribe has an agreement with that you're going to marry each other. We've seen that in Africa. We've seen it in North America. We've seen it in Europe. We've seen it in Asia. I mean, there's no reason to say it's impossible. Now, the question is there evidence of it? Not really. But also, these are very large areas. I'm not saying that Garrett Bardsley was taken by a feral person. I'm not saying that there are feral people. I'm just saying the possibility exists. I don't think that we have strong evidence for it. At the same time, I would not be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where the Occam's shaving kit comes in here. Is like, all right, we've got a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
We need to give it a trim.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily need to all be shaved off, but we need to give this a trim.
Yeah.
And those are the cases that I think are odd, and that I think is the most likely explanation for a lot of them.
Mm.
These situations where somebody's really out in the woods in a place where people just don't go, and then they get got. That seems feasible. Looking at like the missing 411 stuff, though, there are far too many of those cases where there is a rational explanation. And I remember sitting there with people saying that on our old missing 411 videos.
Mm-hmm.
Basically going like, you guys don't understand. David Politis is off. He's not telling you the full story. And me being like, you just don't want to believe. And I went into it and I was like, oh, oof. Maybe I wanted to believe a little too much.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think that the whole truth is being told about every single missing persons case.
Mm-hmm.
I think the government lies quite a bit. And I'm just not willing to simply sit here and accept them. I also think that there is a level of skepticism of the government that might push it a little too far. And so to wrap this episode up before we go to questions, the plane. Aiden, did you see the information? Like did you see the debunk?
Oh, you showed me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think?
Oh, the most recent, the image?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% match. I did what they show as an example with an image that I could find that just generally gave the same style of, oh, this is a normal satellite image that I could take to make look slightly different. That image is an exact match, without a doubt.
The funniest part of it was seeing all of the people on Twitter like, oh, because 5% of the clouds match. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's not 5%.
No,
dude.
that's like, at minimum 95.
Yeah. For me, that right there was basically the same thing as if we were to look at the Bobby Bizup case and say, no, it was Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually even more of a smoking gun than that, in my opinion. I think there is more of a chance that Bobby Bizup was taken by Bigfoot than that those images are not actually the origin.
Yeah.
And it appears that it actually took Kim.com telling Ashton, dude, it's over, for him to accept it. And I'm not, here's the thing. We had our fun, making fun of Ashton a little bit at the beginning of the show. I don't want to harp on it. The guy was very rude to us. He was very dismissive. He referred to us as children, despite the fact that we were in our mid-20s. And both now have multiple years of professional experience doing this when he doesn't. And I think he's got enough egg on his face right now that we don't need to pile on. What I just kind of want to point out is the extraordinary certainty so many people had here, when on its face none of the logic was there. I think a lot of people are of the mindset that you can find all these things that look like evidence, and they're there. It must be true. We must just not have put the pieces together yet. A lot of people never take the logical side. I don't know why. Maybe when I look at it, I notice it's often people who are more IT focused, which I think it's a little bit of irony that there's logic plays such a huge role in coding and in math and everything. But there's a different kind, like the term logic's pretty wide. There's mathematical logic, and then there's logical reasoning. If you look at all of the parts of the MH370 wormhole thing, well, you got these two videos, and you've got this guy who was indicted for something espionage related, Edward C. Lynn, like 5 days after the plane went missing. And then you have people who claim they saw a streaking flaming object in the sky. And then you have the US government being shady as hell. All of the pieces are there. And if I give you a set of variables on a sheet of paper, not even variables, say I give you a set of discrete numbers. That's actually probably a better example. And I say, add these numbers up. Say it needs to be one specific number. I don't know, 370. And the numbers I give you are 112, 46, 10, and 487.
They're not going to add up.
They're not going to add up to 370. That's basically what was going on here. Was all of these little pieces that were put together to add up to something that they simply did not add up to. There were also significant issues. The MQ-1C does not have the speed to catch a Boeing 777. Not within the time that would have been necessary. And even after we did the video and there were some things brought up like, well, what if there was a base here? And what, you guys had the range wrong. It's actually this. I went back and I was like, all right, let's adjust the range and let's look at the speed and let's look at the nearest airbase. Not just US airbase, the nearest airbase, which is an Indian Air Force base. It still would, the MQ-1C would have had to have been launched basically before MH370 turned around. No. The wild part for me was there were people in the comments still pushing the Freescale thing.
Yeah.
And who were like, well, that's not how patent law works. And I don't want to be rude. There was somebody who was very honest, very genuine, who was like, well, actually, I do work in tech. And the way patent laws usually work, if you're working for a company like Freescale, is that you may be named as an inventor, but that doesn't mean you have the rights to the patent. Okay. None of those patent holders were on the plane.
Yeah. Well, also, if your name's on it, but you don't hold the rights, wouldn't that in and of itself make that argument null and void? Because getting rid of them wouldn't matter?
Yeah. It seems like a lot of people take one, maybe two logical steps. And then there's just another like 17 that they just kind of skip over.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I think that to a large extent, looking at this kind of thing, experience plays a huge role, because there is no way I could have made that MH370 video, that I could have written that 2 years ago.
Yeah. Fair.
Absolutely no chance.
Fair.
I didn't know what to look for. It would not have occurred to me to look for a corroborating story on Cindy Hendry. Either would have been like, yeah, I mean, that really looks like debris. Artifacting would not have come to mind, because I didn't know what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or I would have said, nah, just one person. Not enough. Instead, I went, that could be artifacting, but let's take a look. Did anybody else report this? All right, 2 Cathay Pacific pilots did. All right, there's multiple stories referencing that report. There's no report. There's CNN journalists referencing that report. There's no report. I couldn't even, and a lot of the time what I'll do is if something shows up and it's like a 404, I go, okay, Wayback Machine. I almost always find it. Wasn't on the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine is an Internet Archive. That does not mean it's not subject to DMCA takedowns.
Yeah, that's true.
Or intelligence. The CIA, the FBI, all the 3-letter agencies, back when Twitter was owned by Twitter, they had backdoor access that they requested be built into Twitter. There was actually a pretty major lawsuit and news story, if I remember correctly, where the FBI wanted Apple to build a backdoor into all devices. And Apple said no. Which, rare Apple W. based as hell on Apple's part.
Yeah, 100%.
They really said get a warrant.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter had one, Facebook had one, by extension, Instagram had one. They wanted to, and I don't think Rumble did. I think this is one of those. YouTube, I think, had one. So Google. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's some weird stuff right there. And it does make it possible that a story of that nature, especially early, if you caught it really quick, could be just erased.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if nobody's thinking to take physical screenshots. Does that mean that the Cathay Pacific pilots definitely saw the debris of MH370? No. Does it mean that that's a bit of an issue with the official narrative? That that's not something that has been reconciled? Yeah. There are a lot of things about that story that don't add up. But there is a difference between a story not adding up and your theory being right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people get lost. That's why a lot of our videos, what we do is we go, all right, well, this all doesn't make sense. What's all of the information available? Okay, with the information available, what makes the most sense? Does that make sense? No? I don't know. But something's clearly not right here.
Yeah, something clearly.
That's the process, A lot of people don't take it, and it's a process we developed sheerly out of experience. Nobody taught us that. A lot of people told us we should probably be a little bit more careful, and we didn't listen. Or I didn't listen. You never were involved with that side of stuff. So it's like, I mean, there's a number of things that I look back and I'm like, oh man, I'm cringing. I'm cringing hard right now.
We all have those moments, though. Yeah,
unfortunately, mine are on camera and have hundreds of thousands of views.
That's fair. I'll give you that one.
But we have a bunch of super chats. It is beyond 8 p.m. Also, for those who are expecting a cocktail stream tonight, something came up. We had to postpone. It will still be happening. And what I wanted to do, in fact, while I have you guys here, was I wanted to run over into my email so I could grab this, copy the link address, and send it. Oh boy, I can't do it through my computer because YouTube dumb. I don't even need to go to Creator Studio. I can just go to our channel. Nope, I did not want to Google TY. Aiden, what's wrong with me?
You overcooked again?
Yeah, I think I'm overcooked again. No, it happens. It really does happen.
It does happen.
Happens to the best of us. I'm gonna need to mute this bad boy immediately. No, stop it. That's what I wanted to send. If you guys tuned into our last cocktail stream with our buddy Celso on Dia de los Muertos, he is in a competition right now to be to be one of the best bartenders in America. If you watch that stream, I don't think we need to do much more to make the argument for him. The guy is a magician, and we would greatly appreciate if you guys helped him out with this competition. There are multiple rounds. He's trying to make it through the first one. That link will take you to a site where you can vote. You can use either email or Facebook, and you can vote once per day. The first round of voting ends on the 14th, and we would just really love to help Celso out with this. Also, if this is successful, there's a chance we could get some Lore Lodge signature cocktails or even a Lore Lodge signature liquor.
Oh yeah.
So if you guys want Lore Lodge whiskey, this is right now your best chance to get it, and we would just really appreciate it as people behind the show. Just would be nice. It would be nice to be able to help out a friend of ours, and I think we have already proven to you guys via that cocktail episode that he is fully deserving, and he's going to be doing another show with us either this week or next.
Yeah.
So just wanted to get that out there. But with that out of the way, super chat time.
You got it. Let's just start from the top. I just got news from number 7850 for $5. Says beans?
Beans?
Yes.
Yes. Almost as bad as bees. Dude, I do not like the bees in Lethal Company.
No, they're not fun.
They're not fun at all.
They're not fun.
Also, Lethal Company, hell of a game.
Good time. I'm just going to highlight again Cameron Tolley's $50. It was very, very kind. Ryan Whitcup for $5.49 saying, hello, boys. What can I do to improve my storytelling I try to get as much info as I can, but then I feel like I ramble. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, so first thing, get a good editor to cut out the rambling.
Yeah.
He knows when I'm rambling and he can cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I can sit there while he films and be like, am I rambling?
Yeah, it helps to have that live interaction.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that much. If you got somebody who's a friend of yours, a partner, anybody sentient who's willing to, it could be your mom.
Yeah.
Who's willing to sit there with you while you tell the story to the camera or to your recording software and just be like, hey, wrap it up. Like, get back on track.
Yeah. It also helps that, like, if it's specifically storytelling, I don't know what kind of stories you're telling specifically, but it helps to have a protagonist and an antagonist in your story to the best of your ability and create a bit of a structure that has a beginning, middle, and end. Even if it's not a story, even if you're just telling some form of factual event, telling it somewhat chronologically, whether that be through time or through a person's perspective that changes different times, it helps to build a narrative for your audience.
Also, using a script, even if it is just notes on a page, if you got that in front of you, you can be like, all right, I need to get back here. And what I've started doing is my notes have become more and more scripts, where it went from, I had like, all right, these details are important. I can remember all of it. I can. Sure helps to have the script.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, right, having some form of script is extremely important. Also, just practice. It took 2.5 years to get to where we are now, and I had a theater background. I had a writing background. Like I was starting ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
and it took a long time. What helped more than anything was just doing it week after week after week after week. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 weeks where we've missed a video in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say is practice. And it could be that you're practicing the same story over and over. Sit there in front of just your phone camera or your computer, like webcam, record and just rewatch. All right. What can I trim? What doesn't need to be here? Eventually you'll get to a point where you can do that in the editing process.
Yeah.
But for the time being, the best thing you can do is practice. Don't get too lost in the weeds. Don't try and write the perfect script. Say it, listen to it. Did it work? Maybe, maybe not. If you think it's on the edge, go back and do it again. We now do this live.
Yeah.
Where I will say something, think about what I just said, and I want to do that again. Or I will say something, I'll be okay with it, he won't.
Yeah.
So the 2 biggest things I would say, repetition, just keep practicing, and having somebody there to keep you on track.
Yeah.
Do you have any further?
No, I think that generally covers it. I think really, the benefit that we have with, we have a lot of overlap in our capabilities and skills of like, writing and storytelling and things like that. But him coming from a research perspective and an academic perspective, and then me coming from a film and journalism perspective, it allows us to cover a broad range of how we could present a product or a project or a video. And having the back and forth between the two of us allows us to really kind of hone in on what's going to be the best for the kind of content we're making. So the more opportunity you have to have someone to bounce ideas off of, especially someone who has, some existing knowledge in this space, like he was saying, even if they don't, another brain generally always helps.
Yeah, it's extremely helpful.
Yeah. Next is Ben Krasniak for a member 5 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, if you did not know, you can support the channel via a recurring membership. Currently, the only tier we have on this channel is $5. It gets you a free super chat every month.
Might as well.
Nothing super special beyond that, but it does get you that.
Says, I made Isaiah Wendusi tier list recently.
Stay
Wendusi tier list recently. Where is my reward? Also, the ATF shot one of my lesbian Wendusi bodyguards, and the funeral is Friday.
Well,
where
first
should
of
we
all,
send flowers?
Yeah, rip to your Wendusi bodyguard.
Yeah.
The other thing is, how do you feel about that?
How did you manage that?
How did you manage to make that happen? I want to give you some sort of reward. I simply, I guess request what you would like, and we will tell you if it's reasonable.
Yeah, let us know.
Send you like a poster.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
we should have some posters.
We do. Yeah, it's on the Spring site, dude.
I haven't seen it in ages.
No, wait, I forgot that. Wait, I didn't need to change anything. I just needed leave. Okay, here we go. I'll find it. Continue with that.
Okay. Jeremy McMichael for $2 says lacrosse seems full of demons.
It's full of something.
Yeah.
A lot of liquor. Like an extraordinary. Good Lord. I cannot speak today. An extraordinary amount of liquor.
Yeah.
And beer.
Wisconsin, when it gets cold, I can't imagine there's that much else to do up there.
Yeah.
Agamemnon's gym bag for $2 says lacrosse is wild, beautiful scenery though.
It did look that way from when I was taking a look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
A Cedar for $5 says, I'm in Wisconsin right now for military training, and the only things I can think about out here are mysterious deer disappearances and dogmen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay, what is going on here? I keep hitting edit or add, and it's not opening up the edit or add menu.
Kiernoff for $5 says he may have filed FOIAs for police reports that may not be accessible to the rest of the public. Maybe that's why you can't find the corroborating reports. I believe for the corroborating reports, you were talking about corroboration for the MH370 bit about the satellite images of the wreckage.
No, I think maybe they're talking about the David Politis stuff.
That might be.
Yeah, no, so here's the thing. That would be one thing, except that's not what he cites. Also, if you have that report, it's now public. You can share it. And I can't think of a reason not to share it if your end goal is truth.
Yeah. The White Trash Panda for $5.07 says, please acknowledge RK Artist for the when a razor just won't cut it idea.
Yes, I could not remember who it was.
Attention. Yeah, thanks. Keep it up, boys.
Yeah, I had it saying for when a razor just isn't enough, and it was RK Artist that's added in the for when a razor just won't cut it. Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. Jeremy McMichael for $5 says, check out the disappearance of Fred Fritz Drum. Disappeared a week after Tom Messick, about an hour away. Coincidence much?
We actually talked about him in the video. Yeah, I took a look into it. Weird, definitely weird. Not sure how connected, but I was curious. There's a lot less information on that one. He basically went out for a walk and was never found. My best guess would be like abandoned cistern, but again, with so little information, I'll see what I can find. I'll dig back into it, but I do want to go back up to Brant Lake.
Yeah, and even just to be there.
Well, I just want to bring the Jeep.
Yeah,
and so we can actually go down that road.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest, most disappointing thing was that we couldn't get down that road.
Yeah, because we didn't know it was going to be
that gravel.
Yeah.
Oriented. All right. I don't know why these won't come up, but at the very least, I can show the one of them. We got where'd it go? We got this guy. This is at least one of them. Boom. Wendigo. Lore accurate Wendigo, actually. Except and the red eyes are in maybe. But this was drawn by one of our good friends, Norman Keys, who has done basically all of our channel's artwork.
Yep.
Okay, let me go back to pod. There we go.
Nice. Next is from Miss Maury for $5 saying, great quote from a British archaeology show called Time Team. Ritual is what they say when archaeologists have no clue.
I can get down with that. There's a lot of the times where we come across a site where it's not clear what its purpose was, and it's just kind of like, it must have been a ritual site. It's got to be what it was.
That's great.
So, I do think archaeologists I think that they are an incredibly important aspect of history. I do wish they were a little bit more imaginative. I have had some conversations with archaeologists where I'm just like, okay, but just because we haven't found it yet doesn't mean it's not there. And they're like, but we haven't found it yet. And I'm like, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Also, we didn't think it was worth looking into is not a good excuse. And I've seen that one a few times. Göbekli Tepe is another one of those things where I'm like, okay, but how do we line this one up? And they're like, well, I mean, it seems that like maybe hunter-gatherers were capable of megalithic architecture. And I'm like, so you're just cool with that? And don't worry, I'm not saying that's all archaeologists at all. It's not. It's just a lot of the ones that I've had conversations with.
Yeah, fair.
I've had some conversations with archaeologists who were very, very much on the, let's look into the weird stuff side. So.
Fair. Agamemnon's gym bag for 556 says, I mean, the crocodile guy got taken out by a stingray. Not that crazy to think the grizzly guy bought the farm from a grizzly. This is fair. Also, R.I.P. Steve Irwin.
Yeah. What a loss. Truly one of the few good men in media.
Yeah.
Yes, he did get got by a stingray. I would say getting got by a stingray under the circumstances he got by a stingray were a bit less strange because he was diving off a reef and ran into a stingray. Bart was leaning up with his back against a tree. His peripheral vision would have caught anything. Yeah, it's possible. I'm not going to sit there and say it's impossible. I just think it's unlikely.
Sure.
How many people do we see getting killed by stingrays every year?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of people dying from grizzly bear attacks, but...
It's true. M. Klein for $5 says, been binging the show at work over the last few weeks and finally catching a live show. Have y'all ever heard of the Snallygaster?
Yes, that term I have heard that. There's a meme I'm looking for. Snallygaster. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, give me 1 second. I just gotta pop this one up really quick. This guy right here.
That's great.
Yeah. This is not what he wanted.
Yeah.
I'll punch this taser napkin for Steve Irwin.
Incredible.
Stingray mutilations prompt Irwin vengeance fears. That is one hell of a title.
Yeah.
Here, let me pull it back. Yeah, Snallygaster is a term that sounds familiar. It's one of the fearsome critters, right? Let me give it a quick look. I believe this is a fearsome critter. See, early sightings associate the Snallygaster with Frederick County, Maryland, especially the areas of South Mountain and Middletown Valley. All right, well, I mean, that's not all that far away. We can take a look at a Snallygaster episode. I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to do a Maryland lore episode because Maryland has a weird amount of nonsense going on.
Yeah.
For a state that otherwise is fairly boring, a lot of weird stuff going on in Maryland.
Yep. Rob Eisman for $19.99 says, I agree, cover up. I will send you some interesting information on Mike Hotel 370. It is rarely talked about, but most info can be verified. I'll DM you for your eyes only. Thanks.
Sounds good.
John Norcia for 81 for $20 says, hey, I'm a big fan, love the show and the podcast. Thank you very much. I'm a soon-to-be race car driver in New Jersey. Start at Crate and move to Small Block Modified. Cool.
All right.
And I would love to have you, Lore Lodge, as a sponsor to put the logo on the car.
I mean, I don't know what your what the money there looks like, but we can talk about it if you want to send us an email.
Yeah, we'd definitely be interested.
Send it to our business email, which is the one that is linked in our About page. Send it to that. Yeah. That way I can guarantee our manager will see it, which means that you have a much better chance of us actually doing it. Because they kind of push us on these things.
Yeah, it helps. Agamemnon's gym bag for $20.01. Thank you. It's weird to me how quick Ashton's theories took off, especially with an issue that everybody had basically forgotten about. Was he a distraction?
Twitter got so weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot more fun now than it used to be, but Twitter got weird. And you see, like, a lot. There's very simple stuff that goes viral, like these like history and videos account, and there's like there's a few of these like AI chat GPT basically accounts where somebody's just running a prompt through chat GPT and then reposting whatever it says, regardless of whether or not it's true, and they get millions and millions and millions of views. Twitter basically, is about as reliable as TikTok. I've been saying TikTok is video Twitter for a long time now.
Yeah.
I think it's entirely too possible that it really was just interesting thing presented in a very authentic way, and people took it seriously. I think there's also the fact that not a lot of people on Twitter were necessarily adults when that happened. Yeah. There's a lot of people on Twitter who were, but even for me, I was 16.
Yeah.
Like, we were in high school.
Yeah.
It was a big news story. I remembered very little about it. And if I remembered very little about it, aside from, man, it was really sketchy how that whole thing disappeared and happened, I can see that, like, maybe if I didn't have as much experience with conspiracy theories as I do, looking at that and going, wow, that looks really real. Because even when I first looked at it, I was like, I mean, just looking at this, I have no way of disproving it on its face. It took me two full weeks of burying my nose in every possible news article, like safety report, everything. We're talking like probably 100 hours.
Yeah.
And then you doing stuff I was incapable of doing before we finally could say definitively, this is bogus.
Yeah.
How many people on Twitter have that kind of time or care that much?
Not many. Not many.
So I really don't. I think it's going too far to call him a plant. Maybe he was, but I doubt it. I think there is a Apple charger back here.
Oh, that'd be huge.
Yeah, it's stuck under your wheel.
Yes, I got it.
Anyway, his laptop is like dying a bit. What's next?
Next is from MasterChef 314 for $12.18. Love it. Is there any plan to add Weird Bible to Spotify? Also, this is my most listened to podcast according to Spotify.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I wish the audio was better quality. We're working on it.
Yeah, we'll be getting there.
As for the Weird Bible, yeah, we were gonna do that.
At some point.
I think we just never did.
Yeah, I think it's coordination on that.
Thank you for the reminder, though, because I can get that done.
Yeah.
There's one episode we definitely can't do because the audio on Isaiah's end was just a mess.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was necessarily Isaiah's fault. I think it was just like the Discord connection.
Yeah.
When we shifted over to Google Meet, it got so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Because Google doesn't like have nearly the limits on bandwidth.
Yeah. Gone to bed Krajniak again for $2 says, I'll send an email about the reward tonight.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Michael Austin for $5 says 1/4 Garrett.
Quarter Black Garrett. No way.
Oh, Quarter Garrett gave you guys a call out last night on Forbidden Frontier.
Did he now? I mean, my guy, we're right here. Well, come on the show, man. I'm in that cinematic universe as a referenced side character who rarely appears. Been on Pop Culture Crisis. That's vaguely connected through several
growing.
people.
But growing.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be back on the 22nd.
Nice.
So, tune in for the first hour and then come back here and watch our show. Yeah, I'll have to. I mean, if you guys want to let them know, I would love to go on Forbidden Frontier. That would be a lot of fun. So if you guys are fans of that show, the way we got on Pop Culture Crisis was people adding them and being like, "Hey guys, have Lore Lodge on, and then finally I was like, "Hey guys." So we would love to go on that show, have some conversations with them. I know that they talk about a lot of the same stuff we do, and I think it would be a cool experience, good crossover.
Yeah, it sounds like a great time. John
That's Quarter Black Garrett's from Crowder.
Oh, got it.
Crowder's guys.
Oh, that's got it.
He was one of the comedy side.
Yeah, I remember that now. John RC81 for $5 says, if you're interested in talking about it, I'd love to do it over email or something.
Sure. Yeah. Shoot us an email.
Yeah. Valentine Brunette for $2.
And if we do not respond, do not take it personally. It really is that we just have way too much going on, but I will try. I will remember. I will do my best to remember.
We're working on it. Valentine Brunette for $2 says, what is your opinion of Josh Gates?
Don't know enough about him. I looked him up. I just don't know enough about the guy to have an opinion. But I can take more looks into him. Looking at kind of what he does. Television presenter, Tufts University, Expedition Unknown, Destination Truth. Yeah, I can take a look into him.
Yeah. Miss Maury for $2 says 5 stingray ends in Australia since 1945, 20 worldwide.
Oh, okay.
So not many.
Not many.
Zachary Schmidt for $9.99 says, I've been binging the show too. Love y'all. I had a friend from high school that went missing, Christopher Orcutt. There's so little info about it, but last I heard the FBI got involved, and that was in 2016.
Interesting. Christopher Orcutt. I'm going to write down the name.
Cool.
Anytime the FBI gets involved, that's weird.
Yeah.
Because they, as a rule, don't get involved with missing person cases unless they think that there was a criminal element or...
it was a kid, right?
Yeah, unless it's not even just criminal. It's like organized crime, across state lines, serial killer, child. Those are the only situations. Or trafficking, but that's across state lines.
Would a high school kid count?
Probably anybody under 18 would count.
Yeah. So maybe that's why.
Could be. But there would have to be a reason that the local police felt they couldn't handle it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I will look into that.
Krell Crypto for $2 says, thoughts on the Dumbs conspiracy?
I just looked that up. Deep underground military bases. Conspiracy theorists believe earthquakes are caused by members of the military freeing children from these bases and arresting members of the deep state. All right, well, that's from the Anti-Defamation League, so we can just basically ignore that. It's like using the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Are there likely underground bases that the military has? Probably.
I mean, it's actually not even a conspiracy. There are. Mount Weather, Cheyenne Mountain Complex, like there are deep underground military bases.
Yeah.
Now, the rest of that... I'm going to have to read a lot. I'm going to have to read so many things. But yeah, I mean, it's not... That's one of those things where I think... Yeah, there's deep underground military bases. I don't know how you define deep, but like, this is how a lot of conspiracy theories start, man. There's something real, and then somebody just kind of like starts saying stuff, and there's enough real stuff there that it sounds believable. We do know that there's Mount Weather, Cheyenne Mountain. There's the Denver airport. Which I have confirmation from a source that is, in fact, of the same nature.
I think there's one in the Austin airport, too.
Probably, yeah.
Purely just from my own witnessing of an entrance in the middle of the tarmac.
Yeah.
It has no access any other way.
Yeah.
And it is surrounded by barbed wire. So.
Yeah, and the Denver airport one is kind of funny because it's like, you can tell somebody in the planning phase, people were like, I feel like they're going to get suspicious. And somebody went, don't worry. We're going to put so much random symbolism in it that nobody can possibly guess what it's there for. which is why there's like Freemason, Illuminati, Satanism, like Wiccan, like there's so much in there.
Interesting.
And as a Freemason, I look at the Masonic symbolism and I'm like, that's not what that's for.
Oh, that's great.
So also you look at the way it's laid out. A lot of people are like, oh my God, it's a giant swastika. And it's like, or, and hear me out, it's organized so that you can launch planes in 4 different directions at once without having to worry about the usual issue of an airport that tends to have just 1 or maybe 2 directions that planes can take off and land from. This allows them to launch in like 4 to 8 directions at once.
Yeah.
Which is really which is really useful if you're trying to get a whole bunch of high profile people from around the country into one spot at once for safety, or if you need to launch a whole bunch of different aircraft at once.
Yeah.
So
or
I also have a source who I can't reveal, and I know I harp on anonymous sources are bad, and that's why I will never use this source to make any claims in any future video about this, but I personally am confident.
Fair.
And take that for what it's worth regarding how you feel about me and, you know, what my reputation is with you.
Fair. John RC81 for $5 says, not much, like $200 or $300 just for a new tire or something.
I could consider that.
Yeah, I think so.
Not this month, but
yeah,
next month we'll make some money.
Yeah. M. Klein for $5 says, yes, as a native Marylander, I can confirm that we have a bunch of spooky stuff for a rather boring state. If Archie is there, can we get an ahoo?
Archie is not here tonight, but thank you. Thank you for the request. I will let him know that that he was requested and that he was missed. I'm sure he will appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
And next time.
Yeah. Gomben Kranjiak for $2 says, are there any limits on the reward cost-wise? What reward is it again?
Oh, for getting Isaiah to say Windusy tier list.
Right.
Less than $50, including shipping. Seems fair.
I think so.
That would we could get you coffee and a t-shirt for that.
Yeah.
Or a poster. But yeah, I think that seems fair, considering we didn't actually put a reward on it.
Yeah.
But since you did it, I mean, I'm happy to send you a t-shirt and a bag of coffee.
Yeah. This is a nice little done. Negit for, is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Negit?
Negyt,
I guess. For $5 says, I think I'm late to the party
maybe
tonight.
Maybe it's Neg-YT, like Neg YouTube.
Maybe. I think I'm late to the party tonight, but I love your work, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hope I got your name even remotely right. Losperai for $9.99 says, hi, Aidens. Can't watch live this time, but I'll listen to it at work tomorrow doing tire repair work.
All right. A man's job.
Absolutely. Wanted to ask, though...
Or if you're a woman, just kind of was like going with like that's a real job.
Fair. Wanted to ask, though, if you wanted to hear about my personal skinwalker encounter, you guys rock.
Yeah, send it as an email. I am way backed up on reading emails, but go ahead and send it, and I will eventually get to it. Some of you here have probably had me respond to an email at some point.
I know you have.
It does happen.
Yeah. Michael Lawson.
But I would be interested.
Yeah, send the email. Michael Lawson for $5 says, met Josh Gates at a Bigfoot convention here in Fort Worth many years ago. Nice guy, spent time talking to a couple nerds, met Dr. Meldrum there too.
That's cool. Yeah, it's that I do always love to hear is when like there's a personality out there who I think is cool and I find out they are cool.
Yeah.
It sucks when somebody turns out to be like a bad person or just not care about their fans. One person who was that way who I met, who I was never really a fan of, but like I was shocked at how rude he was Jesse Waters. Like you like just incredibly rude person. I mean, I wasn't like I said, I was never like a Jesse Waters kind of guy, but you know, I was surprised.
Fair.
I mean, now I'm not. Now that he's gotten more airtime, I don't watch Fox News. It's like I see it when it's on somewhere else, but like. Yeah. Back when he was just kind of the man on the street, like little funny stuff, it was one thing, but you know. Now that he has a show, I'm like, I see why you're a dick.
Fair. Love Spry for 199 says, also great sweatshirt, Aiden. 3 favorite Star Wars characters. Just so you know, we're both big Star Wars nerds.
We are. I think that was the sweatshirt he was referencing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Obi-Wan's top tier.
Mm-hmm.
He's my number one. Anakin's great too. I'm a big prequels guy. That's what I grew up with. So Obi-Wan, Anakin, and I'll say, I wish the character had gotten a little bit better justice. No, I was gonna say Kylo Ren.
Ooh, yeah, he could have been a lot better.
Yeah,
the tragedy of the sequel trilogy is that it could have been so good.
Yeah,
I mean, they would have had to make almost none of the same decisions, but it could have been really cool.
Oh yeah,
I think the characters, like as they were originally written, had a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And Force Awakens, while it was kind of boring in my opinion, did set things up well.
I think it would have been so cool if Rey and Kylo did a full swap.
Yeah.
That would have been so cool.
I thought that was what was coming.
Wouldn't it have been sweet?
I'm sitting there, I'm like, J.J. Abrams has made good stuff.
Yeah.
That would be, talk about subverting expectations. Like, that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
Or if Rey, made the sacrifice for, considering Kylo Ren was a Skywalker,
mm-hmm.
and the movie was entitled The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
And Rey was a Palpatine. It kind of would have made sense if Rey sacrificed herself so that Kylo could have a redemption arc. But I don't know what it is with today's writers, but between that and Game of Thrones, they suck at redemption arcs. Like, Jaime had such a good redemption arc going.
Yeah.
Ruined it.
In today's culture, it seems like nobody's allowed to be redeemed.
Yeah, that's fair. That good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah, it was disappointing.
It is.
For me, for Star Wars, just in case you're curious, Obi-Wan's definitely up there as well. Going for second place is probably a lot harder. For a number of reasons, I would say Ahsoka Tano. I think her character development.
Oh, over the course of the whole. Yeah.
And then the fact that she is now one of the more prolific characters. I just think her character development in Clone Wars was incredible.
Especially the last season.
Yeah. And if you just look at like the functionality as a character,
mm-hmm.
we got to learn so much about the clones,
mm-hmm.
personality-wise, through her. So she was definitely one of the ones up there. And this is a deeper cut. Pre-Disney acquisition comic book Boba Fett.
That is a deep cut, but I love that.
There is a Boba Fett versus Darth Vader comic. It is incredible.
Really?
Oh my God, it's amazing. There's also a number of really good YouTube channels out there, like Geetsley's Generation Tech, Eckhart's Ladder, that have done some stuff about the comic book Boba Fett and just generally the comics overall.
Mm-hmm.
They do a great job of taking into account all the different lore. Those are 3 channels that just top tier Star Wars content. And they're guys who, like, Eckhart's Ladder now is like an insider. So definitely up there. And then honorable mention, I would say, is Bo-Katan.
Nice.
Including Clone Wars through Mandalorian. Bo-Katan, I think, is really cool.
Yeah.
Luke and Anakin are they're chill.
I love Anakin. I've never really been a huge fan of Luke.
Yeah. I think Luke was a lot cooler in the 70s and 80s.
When there was no other option.
Yeah.
When he was the Jedi.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Anakin and Obi-Wan, really cool across the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
Luke. He's really cool in 4, 5, and 6, and in the expanded universe. The pre-Disney expanded universe.
Mm-hmm.
Disney Luke, with the exception of the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian, I know that's a spoiler, but guys, come on.
You should know it by now.
Yeah, it was all over. Season 2 finale Luke, really cool. So cool.
Yeah.
I remember standing up and cheering when he showed up. But Disney Luke, just what a weenie, man. Boring. And you can even tell Mark Hamill agreed with that if you watch the interviews.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the guy is like, Luke wouldn't do that. I think he would know.
He would know.
Oh, Lucas, please come back and save us. At least Filoni's in charge now.
Yeah, thankfully. The Chin Collector for $9.99 said, not related to the podcast, but if you're interested in a new internet horror series, try out Interloper. It's a really good investigation series into a fake mystery. The first episode fooled me.
Ooh, I could do that for one of the reaction streams.
That'd be cool.
Be a good one. Yeah. All right, I'm going to take a quick look through and see if there's anything somebody's mentioned, maybe not as a super chat, that was something I really want to respond to. Chris Orcutt was at least 18 or 19 in Alaska and from Washington. All right, that's interesting. That I will definitely take a look at that one. Ain't there a map that correlates cave systems in North America and Missing 411? Yes, actually. I haven't looked too deeply into the sourcing of the map, so I don't want to bring it up too much. But maybe we should look into the map and see how accurate it is.
I think so.
Also, I will say this much. There's a lot of cave systems in North America.
Mm-hmm. Man-made and not.
Like, you're probably never more than 10 miles from a cave.
Yeah.
Whether it's, necessarily accessible from above ground or not by a full-size human, who knows? But, there's a cave over in St. Pete's. Mm-hmm. We walked over it. We couldn't get in, but there was clearly an underwater area that you could tell by walking on it was hollow.
Yep. Or
an underground area that was hollow that had water coming out. So, I think that might be kind of one of those things where people are like, well, look, all of these stone circles in Europe are laid out along lines. It's like you could draw a line in basically any direction from like Switzerland.
Yeah.
And get a line of stone circles. Say you got a just randomized scatter plot. You're going to draw a line and find stuff if you ignore all of the other points. Mm-hmm. And that's, just kind of as maybe a crowning note on this episode, you always have to remember that there will always be somebody willing to lie for money.
Yep.
That doesn't mean everybody who says something is out of the ordinary is lying, but there is always somebody willing to lie for money.
Yep.
Whether that is of their own accord, because they think it will be funny, somebody's paid them to, or because a government wanted them to, somebody will lie for money. Just something to keep in the back of your mind when you're reading anything. So, the caves from all the mining. Good point, Kellen. Thank you. All right, yeah. Well, I think that just about brings us to the end of the show.
I think so.
I think this went well, considering we changed the topic an hour and a half beforehand.
I think it went just as good as any other usually goes.
Damn, we're good.
We're so good.
Or we're just consistent and consistently above average. Or average.
That's probably it.
I don't know where
we're at least average. Well, I mean, the visuals are average for the moment, but we're working on it.
The visuals are rough, guys.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We're not big on aesthetics here.
Well, you
can tell by like the inconsistency of my beard.
We're big on aesthetics. We just are working our way towards them.
Aiden, every single article of clothing I'm wearing right now is from Target.
Mine might be too.
Actually, wait, no. I think this is Fresh Clean Tees. Ooh, one from Cakes.
For $19.99 says, busy watching my Packers play tonight. I'll watch the show tomorrow. Here's some Christmas dollars.
Well, I will say this, Cakes. I hope you guys have a better game than we had last night. Mm-hmm. Fire Brian Johnson, and at this point, Sean Desai as well. And also, John Hussey, you a bitch. Good night. What did the one guy say on the on Twitter or whatever? It was like,
oh, we were for 7-0 for the games that he.
No, the other thing.
Hope the money line on this game was worth your wife and kid.
They like basically implied they knew where he lived.
Yeah,
I was like, you know what? I'm all for it. And you weren't, but listen, there is nothing more annoying than Cowboys fans after beating the Eagles, even though they lost earlier this season.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, it's a split every year.
Mm-hmm.
Eagles fans are never like, we beat you, that means we the best, we're going to the Super Bowl. The Cowboys' second game against the Eagles every year is their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Which I'm not surprised considering they haven't sniffed one in our lifetimes. But if you are a Cowboys fan, I mean, if you're one of the ones that isn't constantly on the We Dem Boys train, I am so sorry, and we knew how it felt until 2017.
Yep.
So, if you guys win out and we don't, you get you stop us from winning the division twice in a row. So I guess that's a cool reason to care. You're not beating the 49ers though. We're probably also not beating the 49ers.
We'll lose together.
And we can take solace in the fact that no matter how this season ends, the Giants have to pay Daniel Jones $250 million over the next 5 years. I think we're still paying Carson Wentz, though. Yeah. Maybe the Rams are. Poor guy.
Yeah.
That went rough for him. Anyway, we're talking about football now, so we're completely off the rails. We could do a show where we talk about football.
I'll be on one of your streams.
Yeah, we can just complain. The sports... what's a name for a structure beginning? Oh, the sports structure.
There we go.
That'll be the new channel. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been fun. And we will see you guys on the next one. And whoever said, how late am I? That made me giggle. All right. Bye, guys.